South Africa faces growing pressure to strengthen accountability, with citizens demanding transparency and responsible leadership across government and the private sector. Now, corruption has weakened trust in key institutions, making accountability essential for democracy and growth. As Women's Month continues, Auditor-General Tsakani Maluleke has been honored for her exceptional contribution to advancing governance and accountability and joins us to share more. Auditor-General, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate you joining us here on AM Report. Then a good morning to you. Congratulations on the award. It will be 5 years in November, I think, as Auditor-General. What's been the biggest challenge for you over the last 5 years?
Thank you very much, Aramile. Thank you for having me on your show, and a warm greeting to all of your viewers. The 5 years that I've served as Auditor General have been quite challenging, but exciting and rewarding in many ways. As you remember, I started in the midst of COVID. I had the advantage of having been the Deputy Auditor General, so I knew the institution somewhat, and I was able to navigate the pressures of operating in that environment. Over the last 5 years, we've managed to gain a few things, not least of which is recognized through this award from the Institute of Internal Auditors, which recognizes the work that we've been doing as Team AGSA, which is 4,000 strong, and people who have been dedicated to ensure that we live up to our constitutional mandate, which is for us to audit and report in a manner that drives impact, and the type of impact that does improve accountability in the public sector of South Africa. Of course, some of the things I'm really excited about include that we've been able to be recognized by the World Bank as one of the few supreme institutions, in fact, two supreme audit institutions that enjoy full independence across the world. We've also been able to be appointed by UNESCO as their auditors, which is an international audit which allows our teams to gain international exposure, but also allows Team AGSA to bring its brand of value-adding audits onto the global stage. And maybe another thing I might want to brag about it at this time, now that it's Women's Month, Team AGSA comprises women who take up roles across the institution. 58% of the 4,000 people that work for the audit office are women, and they're represented right across the institution, taking on significant leadership roles across the key departments and components of our work. And we are able to train chartered accountants, accredited by the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, to also train graduates that join us from university and spend time with us getting on-the-job training and ultimately qualify as chartered accountants. Just this year, 300 new chartered accountants joined the profession, having come out of the audit office. Sure. We were third in terms of the number of the other training offices in the private sector, and more than half of those 300 are women, and the majority of those being African women, Black women, which is a tremendous contribution to the profession, to the institution, but also to their families, given what a qualification like that does for their families as well.
AG, it's like we love hearing. I think, if anything, all of those sound incredible, and it's wonderful to hear that, especially in this month, but also just as an institution. Because a lot of people may question whether we've lost a bit of trust in our institutions because of the things we've seen. What does accountability look like? And what does the credibility of our institutions look like in this modern day, do you think, because of everything we've faced as a country?
You know, one thing we can never lose sight of is that for our democracy to work and serve all of us as citizens, we need strong institutions. And so we have to look for every opportunity to build institutions, to maintain their strength, and to continue to build their strength so that they are resilient to the different pressures we will continue to face. What we are finding is that there isn't yet enough attention to ensuring that public institutions respond to the goal of performing on their mandate, doing so effectively, efficiently, and doing so in a way that is transparent and is demonstrated by high levels of accountability. We've seen some improvements, as we've reported, especially in the provincial and national government. We've also seen some improvements even in the local government, when we've said at least there are fewer disclaimers of audit opinion than what we used to see before, which is the worst audit outcome. But of course, I have to also agree with many that have said that there is a long way to go before the public sector of South Africa is characterized by the levels of accountability that we all deserve. So it just means we all have to continue to work really hard, playing our different roles in making sure that we give institutions the opportunity to build strength, whether it's the people that are appointed there, do they have the skill, the competence, and the ethical posture, whether it's the people that oversee them, are they actually doing their work in supporting those that are appointed to run institution and also holding them accountable. If every single player that interacts with the public sector in any way, shape, or form adopted a posture that says we will build public institutions and we will protect them, we will be able to realize the ambitions we've set for ourselves as a nation.
AG, I was speaking to a friend of mine not so long ago. It was actually the same weekend as the revelations by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. And he made note to me and said he just feels as though there's so much more corruption happening in this day and age than in previous administrations. And he's talking about presidential administrations. And I pointed to the other side and I said, what if actually on the other side of this, it's because corruption is actually being revealed more than it was in the past? I wanted to get a sense of where do you think, where do you stand on that? Do you think we've gotten a little bit more of corruption in the country, or is it revealing itself a little bit more because our institutions are still in place and are firmly so?
It may be a combination of both. What we found as Team AGSA is that there is still a long way to go before we have less corruption. And indeed, much of corruption, I believe we will deal with if we strengthen all of the institutions that have responsibilities on the accountability part of what we've got to do. And also, I think we will certainly have less corruption. In fact, studies have shown that we will have less corruption if we get public servants consumed with actually doing what it is they're supposed to do. And if we focus on ensuring that public funds are actually being deployed in the spaces where we've all agreed that they should be. If we keep focusing on performance of public institutions, much of the issues around corruption we'll be able to deal with.
Accountability isn't only about government and just public servants, but business, civil society should all be getting involved in driving a change. How does that play into what we're also seeing as the national dialogue? Should this conversation be happening a little bit more?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I'm quite clear about is that this is our country, all of us, whether you're a public servant or whether you are somebody who's working in the private sector. All of us have to have an interest in making sure that we build public institutions. We don't exploit their weaknesses for short-term gains, but rather we make choices and adopt a posture that says we've got to maintain the capability of public institutions. You know, one of the things that we keep reporting on as Team AGSA when we conduct our audits, especially in local government, is the inappropriate use of consultants, especially consultants that prepare financial statements, just as an area we focus on. But I guess this would apply to all manner of services that municipalities would be acquiring. And you can translate that to other public institutions as well. The posture of far too many professionals who know better and should do better troubles us. And so we raise it to say, yes, there are weaknesses in the municipality itself. There are people who are appointed as stewards who should be able to protect the resources of that institution. But you as a professional, you should do better, because you know better. And actually that short-term gain you might be able to enjoy today is the very thing that's going to weaken the institution that should be serving you and worse, your children. So when we continue to act in ways that don't protect the public sector, all of us, doesn't matter where we are, if we don't have a posture that says, this is our South Africa, we've got to make sure it works, we're not going to be able to realize our ambition. So I do believe we ought to have these conversations. I also believe we have to grapple with the notion that resources are scarce time is not infinite. And so we're going to have to make choices and choose priorities. And the only way you get that is through dialogue and negotiation about what's going to be critical for today and what can we leave for another day. And these are difficult questions. And I believe we'll only be able to get to those answers if we engage in productive dialogue.
Yeah, but there's grave concern that even with any kind of dialogue, including the national dialogue or the national convention we just saw this past weekend, that there are far too many needs now, that not all of them are likely to be met. How do you regain that, give back people a sense of trust in just the ability to get it right, to be an institution that continues to deliver and feeds on to the public discourse, as opposed to eroding the trust any further?
You know, one of the things one's got to do is make sure that you are transparent about the choices you're making, and then be accountable for delivering on the thing you do agree is important. Maybe a small example, which I think will make the point. One of my colleagues, when we were talking about what happens in the municipality where he lives, and this is now an auditor, but I was asking him, what happens where you live? Let's talk about how you experience the work of your municipality. One of the things he was able to say is, you know, our municipality arrives and talks to us about our needs, and then they'll come back and say, okay, you needed a road, but the settlement next door also needed a road. Yeah. We've decided to focus on the settlement next door. We will come to you in another year once we finish this one, because we don't have resources to do both at the same time. And he said, you know, I believe them because they were frank. And I also believe them because I saw them building that road next door. Yeah. And so I had every confidence that mine was coming. So if we are frank and transparent and accountable for what it is we've said we will do, then you will start to win back the trust that's so required for us to build social cohesion.
Yeah. AG, I've actually run out of time, but I have to ask you this just in 30 seconds, if you'll allow. 2 more years for your term as Auditor General. It's a non-renewable term. So what are the things you'd still like to achieve in the remaining 2 years that you have?
You know, there's still so much work to do. I believe that the next Auditor General will continue with the work of ensuring that the institution is strong and responsive to the different challenges that will arise, as well as make sure that the impact we're able to make through working with the people who do run government and do oversee government, that impact lasts. For me, the next 2 years are about making sure that I continue to strengthen the institution, which is my primary job, but also continue to work with all stakeholders so that we can drive the necessary improvements. One of the things that I've asked anyone who cares to listen, who has responsibilities in local government, is can we make sure that we never have disclaimers of audit opinion again? Oh. This is a legacy that we must make sure we are well rid of. And it would make me tremendously proud and grateful if we could look back at the end of 2 years and we all agree as South Africans that we have left behind this horrible legacy where people flout the law, get away with it, even on the basic thing of not submitting financials or of not being able to submit financials that are auditable. Just those little things, I believe, would serve us a great deal.
It's always a pleasure speaking to you, AG. Thank you so much for your time.